What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. A big ol' domino has fallen. The Bears have said multiple times during this process that they were interested in trading the number one overall pick. It made sense for them to trade the number one overall pick, and now they officially have. So, with plenty of time to go before the draft, we now have a better picture of what the top of the draft might look like. So, obviously, this trade is a big deal for the NFL. I'm mostly going to be looking at it through a Seahawks lens, but just real quick here to talk about it in a general sense. The Bears have traded the number one overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are now picking first in the upcoming draft, and the Bears have acquired pick number 9, pick number 61, so a late second-round pick, first-round pick in 2024, second-round pick in 2025, and wide receiver DJ Moore. Pretty interesting trade here. This is not one of the all-time big fleecings like you saw. Like, this doesn't seem like it's as much value as the Trey Lance trade that we saw a couple years ago, right? This doesn't seem like a overly massive haul. You're moving down 8 spots in the draft, and you're picking up a late second-rounder, a future first-rounder, which in current value could be looked at as like a second rounder, and a second round pick in 2 years, which could be looked at as like a fourth round pick. DJ Moore is a big asset as well. That's actually a pretty big deal to be thrown into this trade. But I think that looking at this, one thing that you learn is that it seems like teams are getting a little bit smarter about not giving up a massive farm to trade up. That's one thing I will say about this trade. It's a fair trade. I think it's a pretty good trade. It makes sense. I think the Bears are smart to do it. I think the Panthers are smart to trade up. But this isn't like, first round pick this year, first round pick next year, first round pick the year after. Oh, second round pick this year as well, second round pick next year, and DJ Moore. No. In the old days, you might have seen a trade like that. But it seems like teams are starting to wise up a little bit and realize, look, at the end of the day, yeah, the player you get up at number 1 or the player you get when you move 10 spots up at the top of the first round is really good, but it's just one player. You don't want to sell your whole future out for that one piece. So that's kind of what I think about the trade. It seems reasonable. I don't think either team got fleeced. I think both teams did fairly well here. And the Panthers obviously going to use this to pick a quarterback. The Bears are still going to get a blue chip defensive player at number 9 or a borderline blue chipper, somebody who's really, really good. And I think both sides can be pretty agreeable to that. But what does it mean for the Seahawks? It means something pretty significant. So let's go to Tankathon here, which is not updated yet. So the Bears have traded down with the Panthers from number 1 to number 9. The Panthers are now picking number 1 overall, and we all know the Panthers are taking a quarterback. They didn't trade up to number 1 to take Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. Teams generally, in my experience, don't do that. They trade up because there's one quarterback they really like. Maybe it's C.J. Stroud. Maybe it's Bryce Young. Maybe it's Will Levis. Maybe it's Anthony Richardson, whoever. But it's one of the quarterbacks they've fallen in love with, and they don't want to mess around. They just want to make sure they get that guy. So, the Panthers, 100% of the time, 99.99% of the time, whatever, they're taking a quarterback. Houston, probably still taking a quarterback. I know there's some smoke around the idea of them taking a defensive player and signing like Jimmy Garoppolo to a long-term deal and just trying to build the defense because of DeMeco Ryans being their new coaching hire. There's some smoke around that. But Houston needs a quarterback as bad as anybody else. And this is an opportunity for them to get one of the top quarterbacks in any draft class. Like, maybe next year's QB class will be better, but Houston might not be picking number 2 overall. They might be picking number 7, and then the top 3 or 4 guys are gone. So, Houston's still likely to take a quarterback. Indianapolis, picking at 4 for the moment still, has already kind of indicated they want a quarterback. They need a quarterback. It makes all the sense in the world for them to get a quarterback. So that just leaves Arizona, and we know Arizona can't take a quarterback, or, well, they probably can't. That's very unlikely. And they're probably, if they don't trade down, which, by the way, they have already discussed the possibility of trading down, and they could trade down, that is possible. But the point I'm getting at is you've got 3 teams in the top 4 now that clearly need a quarterback and are very likely to take a quarterback. And then you've got one team that doesn't, well, I don't want to say they don't want to take a quarterback. Maybe at this point they do, but they kind of can't for the moment. So they're either going to trade down with a team that probably does want to take a quarterback, like, say, the Raiders, Falcons, Titans, or they're just going to take, at this point, probably Will Anderson. Maybe Jalen Carter, but probably Will Anderson. And that means, to those of you out there who want to get Jalen Carter, it officially makes all the sense in the world that he will be there at number 5. If he's not, it's because the Cardinals took him, which means you can get Will Anderson at number 5. So, one way or the other, one of those blue chip defensive players, one of those two guys, Anderson or Carter, is now very, very likely going to be there. The odds of one of those two players not being there is low. When I say low, I'm thinking like 15 to 20%. It can happen, but it would require Houston to take a defensive player and Arizona to not trade down and take one of the two defensive guys. That's what it would take, which I think that parlay, you're looking at like 15 to 20%. So those are the ramifications as a Seahawks fan. If you were on the Jalen Carter wagon or the Will Anderson wagon or defensive player in general wagon, this is great news because it guarantees that one of those guys will be there, more or less. If you were on the quarterback wagon, wanting to take a quarterback at number 5, not so good, because now you're probably going to be left with whoever remains after the smoke clears. Like, at this point, if I had to guess, I'd say Carolina takes C.J. Stroud, Houston takes Bryce Young, Indy is either going to take Levis or Richardson, leaving you with whoever's left between Levis and Richardson at number 5. That's not so great. If you're somebody who wants to trade down, it's not great either, admittedly, because now the odds of the super stud quarterback being there at your pick to entice a team to want to trade up is less likely. In all likelihood, the quarterback who's going to be there is either going to be Levis, who some people are going to be really into, but you're going to need a particular team to be into him. The Raiders, the Falcons, the Titans. Those are the main candidates here. So it's either that or you're going to have to hope that one of those teams really, really likes Richardson, which, look, he's really talented, but he's not a good quarterback right now. And you're going to be waiting at least a year, maybe 2 years, very realistically 2 years to find out about him. And some teams are not going to have that patience. The Raiders need a quarterback right now. The Falcons kind of need a quarterback right now. Now, the Titans may or may not need a quarterback right now, depending on what happens with Tannehill, but they're certainly cutting everybody else right now, so why wouldn't they? So it depends on your perspective. If you want one of the blue chip defenders, this is great news. This is great for the Seahawks. The Panthers trading up basically guarantees one of the top 2 defensive players will be there at 5. But if you wanted to draft a quarterback or you wanted to trade down, I think things just got a little bit worse. So it all depends on your perspective. Personally, I would love to have Will Anderson. I have concerns about Jalen Carter, but they have nothing to do with him as a player. I think Jalen Carter, the player, is absolutely worthy of being picked at number 5. Probably worthy of being picked higher than that. It's not the player, it's just the off-the-field stuff. But we've got over a month now for that situation to clear up. So let me know what you guys think. Big trade, big movement. See you guys soon. Go Hawks.